We acknowledge that the land in which we meet today is part of the treaty lands and territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit. We recognize the importance of this land and pay our respects to the Anishinaabe and other nations, Métis and Inuit, past, present, and future. We stand with all the Indigenous community in sorrow, grieving for the children who never made it home, their families and survivors from Kamloops and Saskatchewan, and for all the children not yet found from residential schools across Canada, their families and survivors. May we honor their lives and never forget their stories. I'd ask you all to please observe a moment of silence before we begin our program. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to call upon my fellow director, Ms. Faith Rivers, to perform the smudge ceremony.
Ani Bonjour, Wache Scano, Tanse. Good evening, everybody. Welcome. I want to light a smudge today to one, to have a good meeting with good minds, and to recognize the devastation that the First Nation communities are going through right now with the finding of the children. And I offer this smudge to bring clarity, I guess, and healing to people who are walking with us, the survivors, the families, the children that never made it home. It is very, very disturbing. Our communities are having a really difficult time right now, and I offer this smudge to bring them some calm, if it's possible, and just to bring and be there and stand there with us. I ask Creator to continue to help us heal, give them the courage to be able to tell their stories. With good minds, we gather today to remember all the babies that didn't make it home. And I ask Creator to take them into His arms and show them that they are loved and never forgotten. Miigwech.
Thank you, Faith. We are privileged tonight to have as our very special guest, Chief Stacey Laforme of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. I will now ask Director Faith Rivers to introduce our guest.
Ani, everyone. Our Stacey Laforme is elected Chief of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, born and raised in the community. He has served his community for over 22 years, being first elected to council in 1999.
That's good
He is
enough.
very active throughout.
We don't need
Okay,
more.
go
That's
ahead,
good.
Stace.
All right. Thanks for having me. It was interesting. I listened. I hope you don't mind to your content. I was very efficient. All right. No arguing. Nobody slapped anybody. Nobody jumped up. So it was very efficient. A little boring, but very efficient. So thank you. You are getting the very tired, a little bit grumpy Gimaa Laforme, as opposed to the normally lively, invigorated young man of yesterday. As you know, it's been a rough few days. As a matter of fact, yesterday I had a presentation I was giving, and it was supposed to be 30 minutes, but I'm a long-winded person, so it was about 45 or 50 minutes, and then we had questions. And as I was being asked questions, I was finding out about the discovery of more children at another site, on my phone. And I had to apologize to the audience and say, I'm just having a hard time focusing on the questions because I'm trying to process what I'm reading on my phone about the children and the findings. And so I'm afraid I'm going to have to, bow out for the remainder of the meeting. So, but yeah, so anyway, Ani, Bazu, Nagani, Anishinabek, and Nini, Stacey Laforme, Disnikaz, Dunjaba, Mainga Dodam, Mississauga, and Anishinaabe Dao. Just said hello. That was it. Beautiful language. Anyway, I said my name, where I'm from, what my clan is. So my mother was a Mohawk from Six Nations, so if I follow her, my clan is Wolf. My father is a Ojibwe from Mississauga as a credit. If I follow him, it's Turtle Clan, so I have a choice of Wolf or Turtle. My Anishinaabe name is roughly translates to leads people man. So that's part of that. What else can I tell you? I'm fond of ribbon shirts. Normally they are reflective of Mother Earth and are covered in flowers to let people know that I have a story to tell, and it's our connection to Mother Earth and our responsibilities to her. And I encourage people to wear something that reminds them of the earth. But today I'm wearing and I'll stand up, but I'm wearing an orange ribbon shirt from Sandra Moore, and it has every child matters on the sewn into it. And I'm wearing that out of respect and compassion and love for the discoveries. And she made it orange for the children and blue for the tears, she said, which is great, a great lady. So I wear ribbon shirts a lot. In the past, there've been some pretty fancy ones, but I don't know about you guys, but I seem to be a little forgetful, and I probably left like 6 of my ribbon shirts in hotels and things in my travels. And when I go back to get them, they're never there. I don't understand that, but they're always gone, and I don't understand that. And I shouldn't lose them, because there are stories behind the ribbons and the flowers and the symbolism and the connection to Mother Earth. So, it's just that I'm what you call. I have a lot of dreams and a lot of visions, and sometimes the practicality of the world slips by me. I'm not saying I live in my head in the cloud, but sometimes. Anyway, I don't really need to do a land acknowledgement. You do a beautiful land acknowledgement here, but I'll do one anyway. I'd like to acknowledge the Creator, the world around us, and our place within it. I'd like to acknowledge the many nations that walked this land in the past, the many nations that walk it today, and welcome you to the treaty lands of the Mississaugas of the Anishinaabe. Now, so I go by Gimaa or Ogama. The term chief is a European construct, so I give that back. I still refer to myself as chief, but only out of respect to you and only until you understand. And then I'll quit. First, let me say thank you to, the city, all the cities, and all the people who offer their love and support and respect for the children, the families, the Indigenous people, and the non-Indigenous people who grieve with us. I know this news caused a lot of pain, and as we can see, there's still more to come. The discovery today and last night was large, but there is more to come. But this is an awakening for the people of this land. This is a call to responsibility, not only for those involved, but for all of us. This is a call to action. So let us recognize that these children aren't just children of the Indigenous people. They're the children of this land, so they belong to all of us. And when they suffer and they hurt, that belongs to all of us. So there are no more excuses to be made or accepted. This is a moment in the life. I say that there are moments in the life of a country that determine how we'll go into the future. And this is such a moment in my mind. And so we have to come together. We have to start walking together. As a country, as a world, we don't have so many moments left that we can let them slip by or slip away. So it's important that we actually address this and make sure that it's always remembered. And we have to take a path that's before us. Time to choose which direction we're going to take. And I say, let us choose to go forward in the path of understanding, peace, and friendship. Let this moment of sorrow be a light that guides us onto a better path. And that's really fundamentally, broad picture, what I want to happen from this. Yes, there are so many other things to be done. There's the call for all residential schools to be searched and looked, checked, and families to be reunited with loved ones, internments and so much more. There's responsibilities. People have to be held accountable. People, churches, governments, whoever was involved should be held accountable. And there is more, when we're talking about reconciliation. But fundamentally, this is an opportunity for us to stand together and I don't just mean in this ideology of the children of this land. I mean, when it comes to racism, discrimination, hate, bigotry, when it comes to the way we treat each other, when it comes to climate change, when it comes to, the pandemic, all these things are connected. And we have to take action. And moments like this give us the opportunity to do so. My only fear in this is when the children's bodies are all found, and there's a sense of, okay, they've got your children connected back with the families or with their communities, and that this feeling of love and respect that we've seen, this outpouring, will go away. And I don't want that to happen. So we have to find ways to make sure that it doesn't. Anyway, and then that's a discussion for another time. But I don't know if you've heard the poem that I wrote for the 215 children and the many more who didn't come home. But I'm gonna read it to you now. As Faith and Jamie know, and maybe some of the others of you, I use poetry when I do discussions and talking, because I believe that facts and figures, are only held on our brain while we need them. And as soon as the test's over, we'll forget them. But I believe that a connection made through the arts, whether it's poetry or music, dance, or whatever it is, can be a connection that lasts a lifetime. And so my choice of art is poetry. So, I sit here crying. I don't know why. I didn't know the children. I didn't know the parents. But I knew their spirit. I knew their love. I know their loss. I know their potential. and I am overwhelmed by the pain and the hurt. The pain of the families and friends, the pain of entire people, unable to protect them, to help them, to comfort them, to love them. I did not know them, but the pain is so real, so personal. I feel it in my core, my heart, my spirit. I sit here crying, and I'm not ashamed. I will cry for them and the many others like them. I will cry for you. I'll cry for me. I'll cry for the what could have been. Then I'll calm myself, smudge myself, offer prayers, and know they are no longer in pain. No longer do they hurt. They are at peace. In time, I will tell her story. I will educate society so their memory is not lost to this world. And when I am asked, what does reconciliation mean to me? I will say, I want their lives back. I want them to live, to soar. I want to hear their laughter, see their smiles. Give me that, and I'll grant you reconciliation. Which the reason well, when I wrote that, and I write poetry a lot, and as a matter of fact, sometimes it's easier for me to communicate through poetry than it is for me to write a speech or a conversation with people anymore. And one thing about that is you pour your heart and soul and the truth into your words. And when they come out, that's what you speak. You know, if you're having a conversation, you can always hedge your bets. You can always make your statements. You can always sort of take it back and, you know, lean away from it. But when you write something like that, you write the truth, unfiltered and honest as you see it. And that poem, I think I wrote that poem in like 5 minutes because it just came out. And I will say that when I wrote it, I was so sad and a little bit angry. And that's why it has that flow to it. But when I ended about reconciliation, I wasn't trying to be hurtful. I was trying to make people understand that so far, when we've talked of reconciliation in a lot of areas, and I'm not saying you guys, but so far, when we talk about that overall with what's going on in the country and different areas, we really have just been living on the surface. But this shows us for a moment the depth and breadth of reconciliation that we actually have to deal with. And this is a little startling and a little bit a little cause of fear when you think about it that way, because this is a lot to deal with. And it's asking a lot of people to actually sit down and do this. So I understand the challenge with that. I was asked, and since I'm on this topic, I was asked by a few papers today how I felt about the I forget, it wasn't a minister, it was I don't know, the parson that, or what, I can't remember the title he had, but he made some statements about why don't we talk about the good things that the residential schools have done. A priest, oh, thank you. Well, the good things the residential schools are done. And then, of course, somebody sent that to me when I was in the middle of talking to a group last night. And I'm like, why do you send me stuff like this when I'm in the middle of a conversation trying to interact with people in a good way? And I'm getting these kind of posts. And so the next morning I got the call from a paper, just a cold call, right? Just first thing in the morning. Hello, want to make some comments about? I said, oh, I don't know. So, well, just won't take them but a minute. I said, all right, what is it? Well, what's your comments on what the priest said? And I said, first off, I reacted. He goes, because he said you wanted to talk about the good things. And I said, well, maybe him and I should sit down and we can talk about the good things that came out of this. You know, because I was a little upset and he caught me off guard, and it was early in the morning. I was a little grumpy. I hadn't had my cornflakes yet. And anyway, but I said, no, don't put that down. I was just a knee-jerk reaction to, much like a lot of people had. I said, I think that that to have a response like he had shows that in a world that is troubled by what's happening here, shows that he lacks an understanding of the environment and the world around him and what's going on. And I said, and he's in a position of leadership, and he should really take the time to step back and step away and see if he's really cut out to be that leader for these people when you can't identify the world around you and the things that you should be doing when people are hurting. I mean, I've said to him, somebody else later in the day, I said, because it went on for a while, I said, you know, I'm not mad at the churches for that, for his comments. You know, I'm upset about what happened, and I'm angry with the churches, and they're not taking responsibility, yes. But I said, the reactions you see are from, in my mind, a small group of people that don't represent the outpouring of love and support that we've heard from Canadian society. Because they asked me if I was getting, what do you call it, jaded since my first comments. And I said, no, he doesn't represent that. And I said, in truth, I don't know religions. I know, you know, that my church is outside in the grove or by the lake or at the fire. And I said, but I'm sure that, you know, in their statements, there are things about respect and love your fellow man and embrace, you know, those who need and help those who need help. I don't know, but I'm assuming that's part of the goodwill and things that are in a lot of the religions. And I said, so his statement is far afield of what I think he should be doing as a leader. And he certainly should be, you know, stepping back and seeing if this is the role he should continue on with. Anyway, that was just a part of that. Before I go on, and I know we're waiting till the end, but before I go on, was there any questions specific to that conversation?
Chief Laforme?
Yes, sir.
I do have a question. I have, like everyone else in the country, have been very upset by what we've had happening in the country. What can we do to show our support? I know the word alliance has been used a lot, but what can we honestly do as Canadians to show our solidarity, but beyond that, to fight to make changes in this country, to ensure that the memory of those who have gone before us is given proper respect, but also to ensure that the dignity of the First Nations and the Métis and our Innu people are given the respect that you deserve now?
Well, first let me say that the start of this, and I emphasize this, and I took a little bit of heat when I said the first thing is to show love, respect, and you know, if you're in pain, mourn with us, right? Grieve with us. That's important that we do that, and it's important that we do that together. And I said, you don't have to find an Indigenous ceremony to do that with. Do it in your own way, and do it with something that has meaning to you. You know, then it can be reflective. We can do it at the same time and do it together, but separately. So that was the first thing. And I think that's very important to understand that, you know, this is a moment that we don't want to lose sight of. This is a moment that can make us better in this country and make us better people as a whole. And so my thing is, yes, there are going to be calls for government to do things and stand with us, write with us, send letters off. Also, you know, heard the word ally again, but make sure that in your world that this is not lost, that this moment is not lost, that history does not forget this. You know, I'll tell you that a year ago, people asked me what I felt about the statues coming down, right? Should these statues come down? And somebody actually asked me a question. I said, I'm not in favor of pulling statues down. I'm certainly not in favor of putting any more up, but I'm not in favor of pulling them down. I said, because we are a visual people as a whole. And if something is out of sight, it's out of mind. This is an opportunity to tell the good, the bad, and the ugly about that statue. I mean, maybe the people who put it up might want to take it down after all that, but in this moment, people are so angry and so hurt that this has become a part of their healing journey to remove those statues. And so I say, okay, take them down. If we need to do that, that's fine. But now that you've done that, what are you going to do to make sure that we don't lose track of this? Because that's a part of history, and the good and the bad and the ugly needs to be told. And now you've just gotten rid of the statue, or you just got rid of the name, but you had that on you for so long. You now have an obligation to make sure that that memory doesn't go away. Right? You're now a part of that, and you have to do that. So I put it back onto them, and certainly, you know, the history books have to reflect the real truth of this land. You know, it's nothing to be feared. It's something to be, I don't want to say ashamed of. It's something to understand and recognize. We have to build our world on the truth. We can no longer allow it to be built on, you know, history is always, and I did a poem about it, but history is always from like a picture taken from the photographer's camera at the angle he wants to capture the image he wants. And that's all we see, to the exclusion of everything else. And that sometimes that what that person wants is not necessarily the truth. They want to look good, they want to be respected, and they don't want to tell the truth of the story. They'd rather have this story. And so it's important to go back and understand the true history, because if we build and continue our advancement on the facts that we understand today, you know, we're building on sand, and it won't, and we won't be strong enough to hold and support us as we go into the future. You know, so there are a number of areas that you know, we all have an obligation, but I believe that education systems, especially high learning, and even in the younger schools, school grades, libraries, museums, people that capture the history, their job is to tell the truth, so painful that it hurts. And that's all they're supposed to do. Just the truth. Don't subject to whitewashing. Don't color it up to make me feel better or you feel better. You know, the truth is a strong enough part of society to stand on its own. It doesn't need us to gussy it up. And so that's what I'd say to that, Greg. Thanks for the question.
No, thank you very much. And I just want to add, as a history teacher, my grade 10 Canadian history course for the last month and a half has been very much focused on these issues, these uncomfortable issues. So thank you.
Miigwech. I don't know, what do you want to talk about now?
Well, I will say, Chief Laforme, Kelly, we had an episode of our Ask a Historian today with someone from the city, and they had done a study and discussions about changing the curriculum. And I think that, I can't quote the exact study, but he said it was a very strong 80% of people who wanted the true history to be told. Mm-hmm. That even the people learning it, we don't want to have things held back from us. Like you were saying, and certainly to Faith's comment, it needs to be the good, the bad, and the ugly, everything. Yeah. You know, and the support is there and the need is there as well.
And the problem with that is, though, that I'll say it like this. I don't want to say this is a moment of inspiration because it's so much pain and hurt that comes with it. But I'll just look at it from that perspective for a minute. So we've all had an aha moment, right? An inspirational moment where we've thought about changing our lives and changing how we interact with the world around us. Something's happened. We heard a speech or we heard something else, and we've decided that's what we're going to do. Well, the problem with inspiration is that it's fleeting. It goes, I mean, it doesn't truly go away. It's always there in the back of your mind. But for most of us, it's easier just to go back to our own lifestyle, do our own thing, and let somebody else look after it. But, you know, when you're walking down the road, when you're gardening, when you're doing something that some people might consider mundane, all of a sudden you remember that aha moment, that inspirational moment. And you go, yeah, I remember that I was going to do this. And for most of us, it'll just be that aha moment, and it'll fade away again. But the secret is not to let it. The secret is to pick it up every time it comes back into your brain. Pick it up and do it over and over again. Because I like to say that, change can survive a moment of inspiration, but not a lifetime of commitment. And I think that's important. And that's what I'm afraid is going to happen if we don't stand together and if we don't do something and ensure this time that we're living in is always forefront, is always somewhere. And statues aren't the thing, because, I rarely do I see statues in the Indigenous world. Even our veterans monument is a mound, right, with symbolic fires around it, and stone pathways and stone bench, because statues sort of represent conflict, right? They're war heroes. They're people who did things, started this country, and what they built it on, and so statues are not necessarily the things to use. I'm not sure what is, but I know that for us, the connection to the earth is a powerful thing. And in the city of Toronto, I got involved with I can't remember. It was where the land came back and overtook on the island, that one island there, just as a little part of that city. It overtook and overgrew all the stuff that was dumped there and left there, the waste and the concrete and everything else, and the land came back and reclaimed it. And that is a spot for people to go and feel that connection again, feel that sense of, sometimes when I'm in the city for days working, I'll feel like I'm just tired, I'm drained, I just don't feel like myself. And to have an area to go like that for people in the cities is so important, because it reconnects you. And everybody has that connection. It's just that for some of us, it's buried down deep. It's not on the surface, but we all have it. And so maybe that's the way we do something with the land. We find a way with nature to do something that reflects this moment in time. I'm not sure. I should say that, I have a whole spiel here that I was going to give. I threw a couple of pages away because it was getting late, but I don't want to do a whole spiel on you guys, because I think that I have a better opinion of you guys than the standard society, because I think you guys understand more about the history and more about, and I should rephrase it. There's a lot of ladies here, but when I say guys, I mean you. I don't know how to phrase this anymore. You beautiful people. I think you have a better understanding of some of the intricacies of First Nations and what they face in the world we live in and their belief systems, because you have Faith, you have Jamie, and you have been working on it yourself. And I see others around here who have been involved for so long. So there's a lot of good people here. And I don't want to start talking to you like we're at the beginning of understanding. I don't mind talking about the land acknowledgement. I'm sure you're all aware of that. Okay, so whenever I do a land acknowledgement, I start with acknowledging the creator. That's obvious, right? The creator, the creation story. Acknowledge the creator, the world around us, and our place within it. Now, that's a short statement, the world around us and our place within it. But it talks that, in my mind, the imagery it creates is it talking about the animals, the birds, the insects, understanding how we are in that system, understanding that we're no better than anything else. We're just a part of a system. Understanding how we function in this world, in society. So even though it's just a small phrase, to me, it conjures images of broadly the world around us, our place within it. And then I acknowledge the many nations that walked this land in the past, because it's important to remember that, yes, there were other nations here. Yes, they were on the land. Yes, they lived and went and came and went. Some were killed off, some died out, some are still here. And then the last part, of course, is recognizing the nations that walk the land today. And that's reflective of, in my mind, it's reflective of wherever you came from to be in this country. that nation as well as the Indigenous nations. I don't just consider everybody Canadians. I think of the nations where you came from and your connections to that, because that's an important part of who you are. We're so used to thinking ourselves as, conception to death, or where we are today, when in fact we're the sum of our history and our ancestors and where we came from. Everything that happened before us, we are a part of. And so that's why I use that. And then of course I end with treaties, because treaties are the way this land was settled. Like it or not, fair or not, that was the evolution in this part of the world. Is, want the land, you have to sign a treaty with the Mississaugas or whoever's on the land. Cheat them if you can, do as cheaply as you can, but get the land. Anyway, so that's why I mentioned the treaties. And somebody asked me, why do you always say Anishinaabe? Why do you always emphasize Anishinaabe when you do it? I say, first off, I do it because I'm a member of the Anishinaabe people. They're my people. And they said, yeah, but why do you go Anishinaabe? And I said, and I never realized I did that. And then I said, because this isn't just about me or my nation. This is about the people I come from. Because everybody deserves and needs to see themselves in the world that surrounds them. And a lot of our people don't. I did a land acknowledgement in Toronto for one of the transit systems, and they played it for a week during Indigenous month, a few weeks, a year ago or two. And I said, well, how'd it go? And I said, great. We had good positive feedback the whole time. But we had one member, one of our workers who worked in the transit system, and he was an Anishinaabe. And he goes, that was the first time in my life that I ever heard my people raised up to a higher position. And I said, that's sad. I mean, it's good, but it's also sad, because that's the first time he saw himself in the world that's surrounding him. And so to me, it's so important that the other Anishinaabe people who live out in the world understand that you are not alone, my friend. If you have something to say, speak up, because there are others of us that feel the same. And that's an important part of unity and bringing us together. So, most things I do are not just for one thing. There are many reasons why I do and act like I do. Sometimes I'm just a pain in the butt, but most times it's a conscious effort to do these things, to tie it together. Even when it comes to treaties, I have always said that, yes, Canada has an obligation to us. Yes, the people who live on land have obligations, but I also have an obligation to everybody who lives and plays on our treaty lands. So my job isn't just to make things better for the Mississaugas. My job is to try and make things better for everybody, to find a way to make things better for you. So I'm always looking for situations where we can always benefit, not just us. Sometimes that's difficult because there's such a sense of underlying mistrust in the world around us, and people think, oh no, I know you, Chief, you're just after what you want to get. No, you don't fool me. Okay, that's fine. So that's sort of why I work on that. I don't want to, I could come back sometime, and if you want to know about treaties and things of that nature and the basis for them. I will say though that treaties are always supposed to be favored in their interpretation for the Indigenous aspect. Well, treaties are written by non-Indigenous people. You very rarely, if ever, see any reference to the Indigenous people. And they were written for a purpose, to take the land. And so a lot of them were unfair, unscrupulous, and just downright wrong. But you will see a treaty, it'll be, land surrender, this date, and it'll be all a nice little European package. And you'll think, well, look, it's all right there. It should be easy to sustain and end. There's so much more to that story. And we have to understand it from all aspects. I will say though that, when they took some of those treaties, did we have an understanding of the concept of ownership? Maybe to some degree, but not to the degree that European structures did. We certainly didn't understand that. Sharing, yeah. And I'll even say that when we sit down to negotiate, and Faith, you can't listen to this because I need your vote next year. When I sit down to negotiate a land claim, I'm at a disadvantage because deep down in my core, I know that the earth is alive. I know the water has spirit. How do I own that? Right? How do I own that? Yes, I can sit there and go along with the words and argue my points with the lawyers, but somewhere inside I'm compromised because of the way I view the world and the value system that I have. I don't know if that's a bad thing or a good thing, but it makes it a bigger challenge to negotiate. And a lot of First Nations people face that, and they don't even know it, I don't think, because that's a subconscious thing. Anyway, I just wanted to add those into it without going into the whole treaty spiel. Okay. Oh, fundamentally about treaties, so I got to say that one of the ending things I want to say about them is that, and they don't all say it in there, but they're always about looking after the land, protecting the land, and making sure it's cared for. Because it doesn't say that, but it's all about the land. So it has to be inferred that it's about looking after the land. And that's the responsibility of everybody. And so I always talk about that. And I was going to do a poem for you. As you know, I do poems. There was a time, and if anybody ever read my book, Living in Tall Grass, you'll know that one of the poems in there is from the perspective of a tree where all the people are now gone, and it's only the trees left, and it reflects upon the life of the people who used to be there. Anyway, that was when I was, sadly, I'm talking about everybody's gone, just trees there. That was the optimistic view of the situation. Because I got thinking about this later on. I got thinking, okay, will that really happen? I go, if there's one thing I know about man, we will not go quietly, kicking and screaming all the way. And if that means we can think of any solution, any idea that'll grant us a day or an hour, we want to shoot something in the air that might give us a week, we'll do it. So when we go, there's a very good chance that if we go, I don't want too pessimistic, if and when we go, we'll take the planet with us. And that's very sad. And there's a poem I read that's very depressing, and I try not to read it in a short, if I'm giving a 3-minute speech on stage, I try not to read this poem because it's like, it's something to make you think about, and it's called Mother, and it's from the perspective of the earth herself. Why do you hurt me when I have nothing but love for you? I have seen you crawl from the dark into the light. I have watched you learn to walk and then to fly. I have seen you squabble and fight. I have cheered for you and I have feared for you. I give freely of what is mine to give, yet you take more than I am able. You hurt me more and more. You ignore my pain and my cries. I am ancient, but I am not immortal. I have a time. Why do you seek to rob me of it? Through the years I have been here for you and yours, for your grandmothers and their grandmothers and their grandmothers. I would stay to see your children raise their children, but I cannot, for I am dying. I do not measure the passing of time as you do. Nevertheless, I know my time is coming, and it is soon. I love you, my children, but I fear I will fail you. And even though you have failed me first, anger is not in me, for I was created of love, as were you. Therefore, the toughest part of goodbye is knowing that you cannot go on without me, that your time will end far too soon, and no one will know. This great journey, this grand adventure called humanity, will be undone as if it never existed. I will care for you as long as I am able. Yet when the rivers no longer flow, when the trees die, when the wind rages and the storms come, know that it is not my anger. It is the end of the love I can no longer give, the love you can no longer take. It is my end, and sadly, it is yours. So that one I don't like to use in a quick hi, how you doing? Welcome to Treaty Lands. Bam. so yeah. So I do want to say that you know, there's a difficult time in this world right now. You know, I'm not just talking about the children or the pandemic or climate change. You know, there's so much racism and hatred and violence globally, and poverty and discrimination, you know, and we face our share. We face more than our share with missing and murder, women, suicides, thefts of our children. But I recognize that for all of that, we're not the only ones. You know, when it comes to racism and discrimination, children being stolen, you know, there are other marginalized parts of society that deal with the same thing. You know, I was at a meeting with a bunch of chiefs. I don't know what you call a bunch of chiefs, a gaggle maybe. Don't tell a bunch of chiefs I said that. I was at a gaggle at chiefs meeting with former minister, what was her name? Philpott, who was a very no nonsense, get things done lady, which I liked. I don't know how her staff handled that, but anyway, before she was gone, we were having a meeting about the child and family service system and the First Nations children. And she was telling us how this legislation was going to help us, you know, get our kids out of the system. First off, I told her I don't support the legislation. We have that right now through inherent rights, and we can get our children out by setting our own laws and rules. However, you know, some people use those. So I said, but we are going to get our children out of the system, and we're going to bring them home because we got to. We don't have any other options. And I said, but then what? What about all those other children who face the same kind of trials, who are torn from their families because they don't fit into a system that wasn't designed for them, just like it wasn't designed for us? Am I just supposed to forget about them? I said, I won't do that. You know, it was very quiet after that, and I guess I must have surprised everybody, but they were, I guess not, they were wanting to focus on their own children and not realizing that, again, these are all our children, and we have a responsibility to all of them. So, you know, I want to read you one more poem. More of a little bit uplifting, I hope. I hope. And then if there's any questions, we can chat. If not, I'll let you go home and get some sleep. And I'll just, you know, I've been so busy, I'll just lay down here on the floor and have a nap. So this is called Common Ground. No one thing can define us, for we are complex creatures dreamed in the mind of the Creator. We laugh when we should cry. We cry when we should laugh. We joke when in pain. We smile because tears could consume us. We love unconditionally and totally. We understand that family should come first, yet family is not defined solely by blood. We are quick to anger, yet no one forgives faster. We are loyal and we are strong. When we commit, we are unwavering. We have survived much, but do not mistake adaptation for resignation. You will always see us, for we will always be here, standing for what we believe in, standing beside each other, doing what is right for our children, our future. We remember our obligation to our mother, the earth, and we remember our place upon her. We are a proud people, an honorable people. We do not always do right, for we are human and prone to the follies of humanity. Yet we strive to be better, to make each other better, to make the world a better place for the children. I know the Creator smiles upon us, no matter where we are or what we do, for the love of a child is unconditional. No matter where life takes you, walk proud. You know, I'm sure that everyone hears at least a small part of themselves in that poem, in those words. And that teaches us that no matter how far apart we may seem, we are never so far that we can't find common ground. And that in this society, in this world, is a fundamental principle of life and what we need to do. So that's all I got. I mean, I got lots more, but that's all I got. Unless there's questions, and I don't know how long I talked for, but a little while. Anybody got a question?
Chief, I have a question. It's Michael Spaziani.
Michael.
I've been watching the Credit River lately, and there are no more turtles. There are no more frogs, and it's breaking my heart, just like your story does.
Mhm.
Have you written any poems about that?
I think not specific, but that's a very good idea. There was a book I wrote way back when, and I self-published it, and that had far more things about nature and Indigenous perspectives than the one I actually published through a publisher. But one of the First Nations gentlemen I knew here came up to me and goes, I really love your poem, but I really love the ones about the animals and their stories. And that's important, that those stories are told. And thank you for that reminder. I really appreciate that. I talk a lot about the fact that our part in just, the systems, but, they need a voice just the same as anything else. They need to be heard, but you just reminded me of something, and I'm going to do it. And I don't know if you guys can handle one more poem. It fell out of the book. So and you reminded me of that because you're talking about nature, and there was this 350-year-old tree found in Toronto. Well, it wasn't found. I mean, it wasn't lost. It was, it was in Toronto, and this woman fought so hard to save it. What was her name, Faith? Do you remember?
Edith George.
Edith George. She fought so hard to save that tree, and she's so passionate about it, and I loved her for it and appreciate her. And later on, they were going to do a book or a story, and she said, "Can you write a poem about a tree? This tree, the 350-year-old tree." And I go, I didn't answer her because I didn't want to promise if I couldn't do it. So I didn't answer, but maybe a year later, I sat down and wrote a poem about a tree called Stand. And it wasn't the story that, she wanted for the piece they were writing, but it's a story that wanted to be told. And I use this now when I talk about, well, I'll just read it to you. It's called Stand. You call me beautiful, amazing. You argue to preserve my life. You will fight so that I may remain. Yet you only notice me because I've been called to your attention. Were I among my own in a field, would you even see me? They are killed in the hundreds, the thousands. Who defends them? Do you? They have just as much right to existence as I. The place I live does not make me special. The years that have passed do not make me special. The fact that you have noticed me does not make me special. I am special because I am special, because we are all special. I appreciate what you do for me, but it is not right if it is just for me. If you did not see this or understand this, then leave me in peace. Leave me to my fate, for I will not forsake the others for the love of myself or for the love of you. So when you're asking about the turtles and the frogs and that, you remind me of that story because it could be very easily come from them. It could very easily be their story.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. McWitch for that. I appreciate it.
I really appreciate that. I live, like Michael, in Port Credit. I get into a bit of trouble. I live on Forest Avenue, and I'm the one that's been stickering it, calling it Deforest Avenue. Don't tell anyone. with me. But in talking about curriculum and teaching the history and the correct, looking to the future as well, to teach children to really take care of the world, to really appreciate what's around them before it's gone. I mean, I have 2 houses across the street from me, and I think we lost about 14 trees as they went up. And I'm the lunatic that walks around touching the trees and hugging them. And so, you know, to Michael's sentiment, it's once they're gone, they're gone. Like, what do you do to get them back? And how do we teach the future generation that, you know, we need to keep those? They've been here longer than we have. These were huge trees, been here way before any of us have been here. And it's just devastating to watch it happen. So how do we teach people not to do that? You know, to appreciate what they're actually, how much they're devastating the world and each other. I mean, we rely on trees. It's part of an ecosystem and a symbiotic relationship that we have. So it's, you know, Michael being upset, it's very upsetting. I literally stand there shaking my head at people, and I'm, you know, because I'm like, how can you do that? And I feel a responsibility for them, but I don't have the, other than chaining myself to them, a way to stop that from happening.
Okay, so when you talk about the younger generation, I've been to so many learning institutions. You know, I've done openings for the start of the law schools or the closing of the law school or the graduations. You know, I've talked to youth and young people, and I've went to an event in, I forget where it is. They have 300 young people every year, and they talk about climate change and the environment. And there are so many young minds out there that want to do something so badly. You know, they talk about the carbon footprint, they talk about growing gardens, they talk about what can I do, and they have ideas. And I tell them, I said, that's all great. That's in the moment, and we need to take care of the moment. But we also need to understand the big picture. So I sometimes challenge people, and then I say, I challenge you. Instead of thinking of climate change as a problem to be solved, think of Mother Earth as a soul that needs to be saved. If you can do that, one thing, you will change everything, because it's impossible to do that and take that frame of reference without it impacting your life and who you are and the way you interact with other people. And so you slowly change them. You know, maybe not enough to get them on board, and maybe not enough to make them help you save the world, but enough to change your world. And fundamentally, that's the answer if we all change our world. And so I say it starts with that paradigm shift. Just the one thing. Think of, you know, not climate change as a problem to be solved. Mother Earth is a soul that needs to be saved. It seems like a small thing, but it's really transient, and it goes across so many areas because all things are connected.
Stacey, we have another question in the chat box asking what you think Heritage Mississauga could do now to support First Nations and reconciliation efforts. The word spark was used tonight. How can we be a positive spark?
Well, I struggle with this part, because when I talk to people, organizations, cities, mayors, people, they usually want to know something from me. Well, sometimes they want to know, what should I say in my land acknowledgement? You know, what should I do about this? And I say, I'm only here to tell you my truth. I'm not here to tell you what you have to say in your land claim, or not your land claim. Sorry, I just gave you guys all rights to our next land claim. I'm not here to say, tell you what to write in your land acknowledgement. I'll tell you the truth. I'll tell you my truth, and you do what you have to do because it's your organization. And for the most part, that's how I leave it with people. I do get a little more pushy when it comes to, you know, museums and histories, libraries, and higher learning, because they have an obligation, I think, for the truth. You know, so I get a little harder on them than I do on others. I think Heritage Mississauga is a bright, caring organization that already knows what to do. I do. You just have the courage to do it, that's all.
We're going to do it, Jamie. worry, Barbara. We'll do it.
Thank you, Stacey.
Yeah, I'm not copping out. I could give you ideas and stuff, but I really think that it means more to you guys to do it. Just like I tell people, when you're grieving, you don't have to use our ceremonies. When you're showing support and love, you don't have to use our ceremonies. You know, I went to a city in Caledon that presented me with a wampum belt to the Mississaugas on the anniversary of the treaty they're on, the Adjacent Treaty. And they did it through, they had the Canadian flag up, they had the national anthem play, they had a young lady come out and sing and dance, and they presented me. I said, thank you very much, that means a lot. Then I went to Oakville, or the first one was the Oakville YMCA. And they said, we want to present you with a wampum belt of friendship. And I said, okay. And they did it with a knowledge keeper, and we did pipe ceremony, and we did the smudge and everything. So they did it through my ceremony. And a year passed, and the Caledon mayor, I said, you know, we get together sometime and chat and talk. But the YMCA, I said, hello, where are you? I said, you did a ceremony with me that means something to me. So I expect you to uphold what that means to me. If you're going to do a ceremony that's Canadian with me, that's fine. You know, then you do it and uphold what it means to you. But if you're going to do something through my ceremonies, I'm going to hold you to a higher standard. And you know, I don't do it in a mean way. I just do it so that they understand what they did. And somebody should have told them beforehand, but they didn't. And they've been good allies. They've stepped up and they did things for us that they wouldn't normally do, but they have. And so yeah, so that's why I say, you know, it's important that it be done from your perspective and have meaning for you and not just me. Are you done with me?
Any other questions?
Well, thank you, to say the least, Chief Laforme, for speaking this evening. Is there anything, anybody would like to add anything?
I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Yeah, no.
Great.
There's so much work to do, and we look forward to continuing to be a supportive partner and friend of the Mississaugas of the Credit.
Thank you.
For doing your work and your community.
Okay. Well, I just want to say, you know, be safe, be heard, Bamapi.